The tank engine, for its size, is the most versatile thing on the rails. And the tender engines are the power behind the expresses and the goods trains that go all over the island of Silver. This is NWR Stories. Finale Part 2. The Truth Comes Out. After telling Gordon and the Flying Scotsman about the Fat Controller's medical condition, Edward felt some relief come off his buffers, but little did he know, things were getting ready to start up. As soon as he rounded the bend, he saw that there was a big commotion going on at the sheds.
I can't believe that Edward would hide something from us like this. After all we've been through, he just decided to keep a big secret? Said James angrily.
Yes, James. He did, but you never know, he might have done it for a good reason, said Henry, chiming in.
Come on now, James. You know Edward wouldn't do it unless it was a very good reason. So don't be angry at him. We have every right to be angry with him, said Emily. The Fat Controller is our controller, and we need to know things like this. It doesn't make any sense, said Emily angrily. Oh, come on now, you two. I doubt that he would keep this secret for malicious intent, said Hero. Sometimes with medical news, you can't just throw it out there because it can lead to panic and lead to rumors being spread. You two need to understand that. I agree with Hero. Some news you can't break out, because when it does, people misconstrue it. And maybe we just all need to calm down and just wait for things to happen, said Oliver. Oh, some of you just need to realize that this is a betrayal in the making. News like this is supposed to be widespread. It cannot just be confined to one engine now, said Daisy. Well, maybe the Fat Controller didn't want it to be told yet. Maybe he just needed time to come to terms with it, said Percy. Well, I think it's a load of baloney, said Emily. He is our controller, and he needs to tell us things like this. And if some of you don't agree, you might as well get off this railway, said Emily.
That's really inappropriate to say, said Duck, since most of us have been here before you. And maybe the Fat Controller just didn't want to tell us yet. Have you thought about that? Said Duck angrily, firing back at Emily.
Why, you great western brat!
You GNR mongrel! They fired back at each other. Now, there is no need for name-calling, said Diesel. Maybe we just all need to just let it go for now, and just talk about it at a later date. We still have work to do, so we can't just sit here and dawdle on the news. The engines just thought it was time to just come to a temporary consensus. When Edward arrived at the station, he conveniently found Gordon and Flying Scotsman there, along with Thomas.
Oh, come on, how did news get out? I thought I said we should keep it between us three, said Edward angrily.
Well, I certainly didn't tell anyone. I have secrets from the war that I haven't even brought out yet.
Same here. I didn't tell anyone, said Gordon. I didn't even tell it to my driver or fireman.
I'm guessing you guys are talking about the Fat Controller being sick and all, said Thomas. Might I ask, how did you find out? Said Edward, puzzled.
Well, I kinda already figured it out. So, you remember when my driver's daughter was studying medical school, and she had a quiz on certain conditions that people can get from the heart, right? She studied to be a cardiovascular doctor or something like that. And one thing I remember her talking about is heart disease. Is that sometimes, I listened to her when she talked about the symptoms, and now I applied them to what I've been seeing with the Fat Controller, and essentially I figured it out on my own, said Thomas.
Did you tell anyone? Said Edward.
No, not at all, because I wanted to make sure I was sure, and now, since the word has got around, I guess I was right in the end.
Edward, do you think that someone was listening that night? When you told us? Said Flying Scotsman.
He has a point, replied Gordon. Somebody might have been listening, then told us when we weren't around, and told others when we weren't around, which is why they're having that discussion at the turntable. The island is pretty divided about it, said Gordon once more.
Maybe it's best I shouldn't have spoke about it, said Edward. This has all turned into a mess.
Don't worry, Edward. We'll get through it, said Thomas cheerfully. Shortly after Edward left the station, with a toot of his whistle, Thomas left with his train, determined to find a way to make things better. But unfortunately, Thomas didn't know how to make things better, with the atmosphere being too thick to do anything. Everywhere Thomas went, there was arguing between the engines.
You got to understand, Rosie. News like this, you can't just blurt out. You need to develop a certain source of some communication. Back me up, Donny. You get right. Because it could cause a panic, and bad things can happen when people are in panic now. We must just carry on like usual, and then wait for the Fat Controller to tell us himself, said Donald. No, please. Do you two ever just have a mind of your own? It's like all you guys do is agree with one another. And with that, Rosie puffed away angrily. Thomas, who had witnessed everything, decided it was best to just continue on with his work. Thomas was just starting to think that it was a hopeless effort to try to soothe the situation. Later, Thomas had arrived at the water tower to get some water, when he saw Spencer on the other siding. Oh, Thomas, you don't look so great. You're usually all cheerful and smiling, said Spencer. I'm not in the mood right now, Spencer, said Thomas with a tone. All right. I wasn't bullying you or picking on you. I was just asking a question. That's all, said Spencer, feeling defeated. It's just Edward isn't doing so well after telling about the Fat Controller's medical news, and the island's not taking it well, and it's just hard to come up with a solution to it. Well, here's what you should do. You and Edward should go talk to the Fat Controller, and maybe there might be a solution to all of this. That's a great idea, Spencer. Thank you. Thomas was about to leave when something cried out from the back. If you're planning on going to tell the Fat Controller, take me with you. The voice came from no other than Toad the brake van.
Please, Mr. Thomas, take me with you. I was the one that told about the illness. Mr. Oliver came and got me the next morning, and then I told him, and I guess he told someone else, and the rest is history.
All right, Toad, you can come along, said Thomas. Thomas was coupled up to Toad, and with a toot of his whistle, he left the yards.
Wait, I'm coming too,
said Spencer, and with a toot of his whistle, he followed as well. The trio found Edward at Wellsburg, but sadly, they found Edward in a very bad state. He was sitting in one of the station platforms looking sad, as if he had let the whole railway down. Thomas thought thoroughly before he decided to speak. Edward, we need to go speak to the Fat Controller, said Thomas. Because this is something that needs to be addressed, and we need to just give him our whole little thoughts and just, try to explain everything. Why would you suggest that, Thomas? Because it's kind of too late not to say something, right? I mean, it's not too late to not say something, And I think someone here has something to say to you. Edward soon shifted his eyes to the brake van behind Thomas.
Hello, Mr. Edward. It's me, Toad. I have a confession to make. I'm the one that told Oliver about the Sir Topham Hatt's medical condition, said Toad nervously. But then he went and told everyone and just went around. I didn't know it was supposed to be a secret, really. I just heard something about his illness. Sorry, Mr. Edward, said Toad apologetically.
Oh, I should have made sure that you knew what was going on. My apologies, Toad. But but Thomas is right. We do need to go talk to the Fat Controller. Because that is the only way that this is going to get solved.
Yes, because it can only go up from here. We must go talk to him immediately.
Not to be rude, but Spencer, what are you doing here? Asked Edward curiously. Well, not to toot my own horn, but I was the one that gave Thomas the idea to come here to talk to you and decide to go tell the Fat Controller. I'm just here as, moral support, said Spencer sheepishly. Well, if you guys are planning to talk to the Fat Controller, I hope we can accompany you as well. And there, arriving in the third platform, was Duck and Oliver.
Oi, hello fellas. Are we gonna go tell the Fat Controller or what?
Edward, seeing that all his friends were here to support him in talking to the Fat Controller, felt a great sense of pride and strength. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go. And with the toot of his whistle, Edward left the station, leading the charge. And with that, the cattle cave left for Tidmouth Station, where the Fat Controller was. The cattle cave moved down the line as they made their way towards the station, and they were determined to get there fast because there was no way of telling when the Fat Controller was getting ready to leave. Soon, all 6 of them arrived into the station. The Fat Controller was shocked, seeing that 5 of his engines were at the station with no trains at all.
Well, this is a surprise. What are you 5 doing here? Said the Fat Controller in a stern voice.
Pardon the intrusion, sir, but Edward has something to say to you. Sir, I don't know if you heard, but if a lot of the engines have found out about your medical diagnosis, and it is my fault. I was talking about it to Gordon and the Flying Scotsman, but I didn't realize Toad was listening from the sightings, and he told Oliver, and it just went all the way around, sir. I'm terribly sorry. If you think I'm untrustworthy, I understand, said Edward solemnly.
The Fat Controller looked stern, but then he smiled. Oh, it's quite all right, Edward. I knew that word would get around soon. Actually, I'm kind of glad. It kind of makes this news easier. But what I'm about to say might upset you, continued the Fat Controller.
And what is that, sir? Said Edward.
I plan on retiring right after the NWR gala that we're hosting. I hope you and everyone will take the news lightly, said the Fat Controller to his engines.
Well, it won't be so bad, sir. You should enjoy your retirement. You've been the controller for many, many years. So, it's about time. You need the rest after all these years. The news will shake the island, but everything will work out in the end.
It always does, said Edward cheerfully.
I guess that it's safe to say that the atmosphere had cleared on the island of Solar. Everyone was at peace with the Fat Controller's diagnosis.
It was a tough pill to swallow for the engines, but they understood. The Fat Controller was over 80 years old, so it was about time that he retired. Most of the engines apologized to each other due to their behavior when the news was brought out. There were a lot of hurt feelings and some that needed to be smoothed over, but the engines made sure to apologize to one another. As for Toad, nobody had ill will against him either, because everyone knew that Toad just did the right thing. He did what he thought he was right, and no one could stay mad at the lovable brake van. But over the next few days, the engines spent all their time preparing for the gala, making sure everything went right. It was lots of work, but the engines made do, because they were all excited for what would be happening in the coming weeks. Even though the work was hard, the engines' excitement overshadowed the hard work that was ahead for them. And because they knew that the gala would be very exciting. The end.